This webinar has been in the makings for a while, and really we were wanting to have our community get to know the program and know a little bit more about the leadership, community development, and impact portion, especially pertaining to social media. All right, I see we've got all of our panelists, so let's get started. Hello, everybody. My name is Aisha, and I'm the Director of Programs at Space for Humanity, and I'm so excited to be your host for this webinar. Before we hop in and dive deeper into what leadership, community development, and impact is, I have an exciting guest. We have Antonio here. Antonio is our new Executive Director at Space for Humanity. So, Antonio, come on up.
Hi there, Aisha. Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me. It's incredible to see the chat populating with so many individuals from all over the world, and it's so exciting. And I'm so honored to, I think, being now at week 3 into this new position. It's surreal, such an incredible mission, vision, and organization. I want to just take an opportunity, just a couple of minutes. I don't want to take a lot of time to introduce myself, to say we're going to be producing a lot more content, a lot more telling a lot more stories, and doing a lot more work to bring in the community and bring folks in. Yeah, we're going to reach a new stage with Space for Humanity, and I'm really excited to help usher that through. A little way of background for me: I'm a first generation American. I have dual citizenship with Italy, and I lived there for several years of my life. Then grew up in Connecticut in the United States, but now for the last 15 years, I've been living just outside of Washington, D.C. So I've spent a lot of time working in the nonprofit sector, the government sector. I was working a lot in congressional leadership for many years, and now I'm also the executive director of Space for Humanity. Most recently, before this, I was a senior director at the Environmental Defense Fund, helping to try and save this planet and working on campaigns globally. I'm really excited to be here. My passion for space has been a long time coming. I've always had a romantic view of space and technology and innovation before ever going down this pathway of politics and communications. I actually wanted to be a physicist and engineer. My father was a machinist, and he made a lot of precision tools and precision components for the aerospace industry. And so I think I was very much romanticizing that process as a kid, visiting him on a factory floor. And a real big moment for me was over a decade ago. I got to go see the final launch of the Space Shuttle Discovery in person. I can very clearly remember the sound waves standing there at the edge of the water, the sound waves rippling across the water and hitting my body. And at that moment, it really did change absolutely everything for me and my perspective. And I said, I've got to do a shift. I've got to go give it myself to seeing our species, people from all over the world reach new heights. And so Aisha knows this, the rest of the team knows this, that the charge we really want to move forward with is truly take to heart this is Space for Humanity, and that we're going to go out there and continue to find ways to reach new folks, inspire new individuals, give young people especially the permission to dream at a new level. We can't take everyone to space physically, but we can take everyone there through the journey of telling stories. And I think success for us looks like it's not just sending an individual past the carbon line. It's sending us whole countries, whole communities, whole generations there, and being able to inspire that next generation of explorers, maybe astronauts, but at the very least, engineers, machinists, navigators, scientists, teachers, mathematicians. That's what success looks like for us, to change that global perspective. So it's a complete honor, and it's a lot, but I'm so welcoming of everyone's feedback and thoughts, and you can stay tuned. You're going to hear more today. We have a lot of amazing content planned. One thing I did want to clear up is I hope everyone did see on social media recently that we announced our latest sponsorship and latest ambassador for Space Humanity, Amanda. Amanda Nguyen is going to be the first Vietnamese woman in space, and we're so excited. I know there's been some questions about what is the difference between an ambassador and a CA, a citizen astronaut. And for an ambassador, that's typically an individual who is already put themselves on a pathway, secured their seat on a vehicle, on a ride, on a flight to get to space. We are, of course, going to be supportive of that, just because we feel that they represent and align with our vision and mission really closely. But it wasn't somebody we went through we didn't open up applications, we didn't select them individually. So you didn't miss out on an opportunity to apply. Don't think that we did anything nefarious or that we didn't give you an opportunity. In fact, you'll hear more today. You'll hear more in the coming weeks and months. We are going to be opening up applications again. We are going to be calling for individuals to put their name forward and say that they want to go up. But in addition to that, we want it to be a longer, more enriching experience too. The other big thing is we're going to have more transparency too with the process. So you understand exactly where there's room for growth for you. Maybe you find out some things you're like, you know what, at face value, this is a great idea, but maybe I don't want to go. But you're also going to find out more about our ambassadors and see how we activate them. So again, I wanted to clear that up. I'm sure there's going to be more questions, but I don't want to take up more time because it's not about me speaking. I want to kick it back over to Aisha, who's incredible and runs our Citizen Astronaut program, and the other folks you're going to hear from today. All I can say is please stay tuned. Please watch as we continue to roll out updates, and it's just exciting. We've got an incredible new stage that we're gonna get to as an organization, and hopefully as a species as well. So thank you for taking the time, showing the interest, and we're gonna talk to you all very soon. Back to you, Aisha.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And thank you for clearing that up, the difference between a citizen astronaut and a citizen astronaut ambassador. So right now, I'm going to go into the leadership, community development, and impact, what that is and what it means for our applicants. But as I pull it up and just share my screen, if you can pop into the chat, did you apply to be a citizen astronaut in the last round? I'm curious to know how many people who are here with us right now did apply. Okay. Here we go. All right. So, LCDI 101, the webinar, a guide for aspiring citizen astronauts. And I already saw in the chat, there were a lot of aspiring astronauts, citizen astronauts. Beautiful. All right. So, what is LCDI, or Leadership, Community Development, and Impact? Well, first we look at a niche and clarity surrounding that niche. We're really looking for a niche to be present so that we can then determine, is there leadership, community development, and impact? So breaking it down, the leadership, how are you getting in front of your niche? Community development, how are you bringing others to your niche? And impact, in what ways are you using your niche to change the world? So it's not, is your niche impactful? Because that's super subjective. But in what ways are you using your niche to change the world? So let's go into it a little bit more. We've got up here, just as a reminder, the LCDI. And let's use the example of someone who is really passionate about salmon. Let's call this Sarah. This person, Sarah. Sarah is so passionate about salmon that they actually came up with this really amazing way to know if a salmon population is healthy or not. And no one has ever heard of this before. And this is the niche: salmon populations and health. So in image one, we have Sarah, the expert in salmon, teaching other people in their field about this new discovery, this new research that they've come across. So what do you think that is? Pop it in the chat. Do you think that that is leadership, an example of leadership, an example of community development, or an example of impact? So you see in that first image, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 people gathered around Sarah. And Sarah has a slide deck and showing all about the research and the new discovery and how to use that new discovery and how to see, are these salmon populations healthy? So if you put into the chat that this is community development, you are right. She's developing that community around her about how to understand her niche and how to dig in deeper. Okay, Now looking at that second image, in this image, we see Sarah behind a huge group of people. So the faces are blurred. There's so many people, let's say 500 plus people. And Sarah's talking all about this niche. She's in front of the niche and talking all about it. And probably behind her is a slideshow going over all of the discoveries and all of the research that she has done. So put in the chat, is this an example of leadership, community development, or impact? Okay. If you put into the chat that this is leadership, you are right. She's gotten in front of that niche and brought a large amount of people to it. So there's leadership in what she is doing in that example. Now in that third image, we see some flags in front of people and Sarah taking front and center. And so if we could imagine taking place right now is an international group, and Sarah has brought them all together to talk about salmon populations, talk about this research, talk about how revolutionary it is, and talk about why they need to implement it, why they need to be involved, and why they need their countries to, let's say all of these countries have salmon populations needing help, why they need to be using her research and using this amazing discovery that she's found. So is this an example of leadership, an example of community development, or an example of impact? Popped into the chat. What do you think? If you thought it's impact, you are right. So there is a rippling out of her impact through bringing together these world leaders in understanding how to show healthy populations in the salmon. And it's much larger than in her own community or in her own backyard. She's now got this impact rippled out onto a global stage. So we just quickly went through that so that you can get clarity between the leadership, community development, and impact. So why is it so important for a potential citizen astronaut? Well, this is where we start. Everything starts at that LCDI. Because when you apply, we actually take a look through our selection rubric for examples of leadership, for examples of community development, and examples of impact. And it's through that that we actually are able to use that rubric and say, wow, there are huge examples, great ways to show what you're doing in the world and how you're using that niche, right? And then from there, of course, we choose our citizen astronaut. So our citizen astronauts score really high in the LCDI. And not just that, but if we have our alternates would also be scoring really high in that LCDI. Now, to prepare our citizen astronauts for spaceflight, we're actually going to be talking about leadership, community development, and impact because we always ask our citizen astronauts to do an impact plan that incorporates their own personal niche and their passion, their LCDI, for 1 year post-flight. So it's important that at the very beginning, they have a really, really distinct leadership, community development, and impact going in. And of course, right now, it's information for applicants. So at the beginning, and as Antonio was speaking to, we want there to be a lot more transparency for our applicants, for our community. So you know that we're not just, picking, okay, number 5,621, you're going to space. No, we look at people who are doing change in the world, who have really strong examples of leadership, community development, and impact. So that's what this webinar is all about. It's to utilize social media to harness a way, to use social media as a way to really show how you're doing that LCDI in the world. Now, I really want to make it clear that you don't have to use social media to show us your leadership, community development, and impact. A lot of people will use their application and write to us and describe it to us. And that's totally fine and absolutely perfect. But we've noticed that social media is such a great tool because you can show us examples. You can show us the communities you're working in. Sarah, our person who's working with salmon, could show us being in the field with salmon, could show us those images of talking on a world stage, could show us, being in community and helping to develop her peers and all kinds of different examples. So that's why we're here today. All right. So next up, we're going to be talking with someone who is a brand specialist. As I
Hello.
bring them, hello, Shirley. Now, let me give you a little bit of introduction about Shirley. Shirley is a creative director working independently in Dubai. She specializes in typography-driven branding, editorial design, and contemporary art direction. With a key eye for detail, her work is known for its thoughtfulness, sophisticated style, and minimal aesthetic. With agency and client experiences across a broad range of industries, including fashion, beauty, food and beverage, lifestyle, and luxury, she's had the opportunity to work with brands around the world, including Dubai, Abu Dhabi, London, New York, Copenhagen, and many more. Welcome, Shirley.
Thank you so much, Aisha, for this opportunity, and hello, everybody attending this. I am here to basically tell you how you can build your personal brand using social media. So I'm just going to be sharing my screen so we can get this started. Cool. Let me start the slideshow. Okay, so yeah, my main goal and aim for this presentation is how you can use social media to leverage your personal brand and help you become a strong candidate for the Citizen Astronaut program. So here's the breakdown of what we'll be discussing. There'll be three main things. What is a personal brand? The three ingredients for a successful personal brand. And then how do you translate your personal brand for social media using branding? So using a visual identity. Now, I'll just talk really quickly about myself so you'll know a bit about me and how I've used personal branding in my own business to get me where I am and like build my business from social media. So basically a bit about me is I've done my bachelor's and master's in fashion design, and then solely I have this passion for art, and I started posting my illustrations on Instagram, and I started getting a lot of attention on Instagram. And I got jobs for solely in like graphic design and branding, although like my background was in fashion. And then I was like, okay, cool, I'll do it. And then I decided in 2020 that I'm going to launch my business because I felt that I understood Instagram properly because I got really popular over there. But over time, as I was doing Instagram, I was just posting a lot of my design work, and I felt that was not enough because the competition for designers out there is a lot, especially online. And especially in 2020 during COVID, everybody was starting their online business. So I started randomly then posting on TikTok, and I started showcasing my face more, my personality more. And so in 2021, this random video of my design got viral on TikTok, and that kickstarted my business because from there, people started referring me to their contacts, and so on. And now today, I mainly use Instagram and TikTok to leverage my personal brand and to connect with my audience and grow my business. Because I showcase my personality and expertise to the world through my design process, I'm able to differentiate myself from other designers. Because to be honest, there's amazing talent out there, and it's very hard to stand out in that crowd. But because I showcased my face, I showcased my sarcastic humor, my design process, people were able to like identify and want to work with me more. Now, using these same principles, we're going to apply it for you as well. But first, we need to understand what is a personal brand and why should it matter to you. So let's get into it. Personal brand is basically curating and kind of controlling the public's perception of you. It represents your skills, what you believe in, and your passions. And it involves doing this consistently on different platforms. And when you're doing this strategically and you're creating your online persona, you're communicating what you stand for and who you are. Now, what is the main recipe? Because now we know what a personal brand is, but let's break it down into 3 steps. So number one is standing out, discovering your unique value proposition. In simple terms, it's like what makes you unique besides your skills and like the education, because I bet everybody probably comes from, I'm just assuming, like a space background maybe, or a science background, but dig deep into like what would make you unique. Like, are you a dancer? Do you like makeup? Do you like fashion? Do you like traveling? And try to integrate that into your personal brand. So for me, I like being sarcastic a lot. So I make a lot of sarcastic videos. I love traveling a lot. So if you do check out my page, there's always me like in another country sharing my design process. Then goal-driven branding, aligning with your professional aspirations. What does that mean is I always stay on message. So even though I'm doing things like the sarcastic humor and traveling, but the main message is always my design. It's always about branding. It's all about design process. And then finally, consistency counts. So I have the same image across all my platforms. If you go to my LinkedIn, TikTok, or Instagram, it's always me showing up. It's always my design videos. And that overall, that consistency will build trust, it will build credibility. So now that I've shared this with you, I thought let's build a personal brand together so you can see this in action. And what I did is I went on OpenArt AI and I created like this fake person. So let's talk about this person. We have Alex Johnson, and her passion is sustainable travel. And she wants to, go into space because she wants to see how we can make space more sustainable. And then basically just fostering a better, like sustainable peace for all of humanity. Now, the main focus is sustainable travel, and then a bit about Alex is her skills at aerospace engineering, sustainable technology. Her passion is fashion and wellness, and she's all about being curious and collaborating with people. Now, if we apply this, the 3 recipe rule to Alex, what makes her actually stand out is her blend for fashion and her advocacy for sustainable travel. This distinguishes her from other applicants. So it's basically like how she looks and she presents herself. And then her goal-driven branding is she's always talking about sustainable practices in the space industry. And then finally, she's maintaining it consistently through a visual identity, through what's easy recognizable. So through our eyes, through LinkedIn, TikTok, and Instagram. Now we're actually going to do this exercise together. So now when it comes to social media, we're basically talking about the 3x3 square, which is the Instagram grid. And now we got to figure out what are we actually going to plug into it, because we may have so many things and pretty soon it can get messy. The main thing you want to do when you're building a personal brand, especially for social media, is to identify your content pillars. These are themes of what you want to speak about in your, as a brand. So in terms for Alex, she wants to talk about, she wants to represent herself through space-inspired fashion. So she'll probably always have space-inspired makeup. She's probably wearing like this nice silver blazer or some like pins, but this is how she presents herself. Then she's always talking about sustainable travel. She's sharing her tips and insights on eco-friendly space travel. And then finally, she also posts her insights, recent trends and innovation in sustainable space exploration. I always suggest people to put 3 to 5 content pillars. A bit more is, it just gets a bit messy. And then again, it goes and shifts off message. So try to stick to 3 to 5 content pillars. And now when it comes to the visual identity part of it, because how are you executing it? Now you can have great content pillars, but if it doesn't look attractive, people are immediately going to exit your page. At the end of the day, we're visual creatures and aesthetics do matter, we like it or not. So when it comes to the visual identity, you can go the logo route, or you can have like these high quality images of yourself. If you don't have a professional camera, that's not a problem at all. Just go get nice lighting outside and take nice photos of yourself. That works too. But in terms for Alex, she always has this like look and feel. Like she's always wearing this bright pink lipstick, and she's always having like these pins and the bright pink hair to give that space galactic girl vibe. So she's basically using her imagery, like herself, as the main identifier. Then a color palette. So color palette is all about evoking the right emotions, the right emotions that reflect your brand personality. So she has obviously this very feminine, fun side. And so these are the colors that she decides that she wants to represent her personal brand with. And also it relates back into like space and the gradients and so on. And then typography. So these are the fonts that are used to reflect your tone of voice. Now, many times people will probably think of like an Arial or Times New Roman, and that's very cliche and boring. And I always say people don't do the cliche route. and try to do something different. So over here, for the heading font, for example, because she's like chic and sophisticated, we have this font that you would probably see in fashion magazines. But now we're integrating it into her personal brand. And because now it's in the space industry, it's completely different, it's completely new. But at the same time, we want to make the body text readable and a bit more active. And that's why we have this wider spaced sans serif body text font. Now, and then the fourth point is visual style. So we have the logo now, we have nice imagery, we have your colors, we have your fonts, and sometimes you want to add a bit more. So that could be a pattern, it could be a background, it could be textures. And in her case, she's like, I want to represent myself using gradients. And you can see those gradients are taking and borrowing tones from the color palette. And now we're going to put everything together. And this is what you can fill your 3x3 or your Instagram grid with. You can see all those colors are reflected consistently. You can see their pictures of her. And even when she's talking about like her insights, her knowledge, you can see that it's very easily readable and people can understand what she does at a glance. It's not messy, and also it's visually attractive. At the end of the day, social media is about visuals, like I said from before. And if we go back, she's still following her content pillars. She's still educating people. She's still informing people about what she does. And she's doing that through the brand identity. So through logos, through colors, through typography, through overall aesthetics. And I just want to say that like a personal brand, okay, is not only about what you say, but it's also how you make others feel and the impact you create. So with the colors that you're choosing for your brand, it also evokes the emotions for the audience as well. And by using social media, you can authentically build a personal brand and help you be selected for the Citizen Astronaut program. And I don't know if anybody knows, but I also like did the visual identity for Aisha for her personal brand. And we did the same exercise. We understood what Aisha wants to stand for. We identified her content pillars. We explored different directions and colors. And then we put together custom social media templates that if you see on Aisha's page, you'll see these templates come to life. So yeah, that was basically what I have to say. And for those who are interested to work together, I have a special offer for the attendees. So you can DM or email me if you'd like to work together and build your personal brand. So yeah, if you have any questions, let me know.
Thank you so much, Shirley. That was really helpful. And I know that some people in the chat were saying that this is exactly what they needed. Now, unfortunately, we're a bit tight for time. So is it okay, Shirley, if people shoot you some DMs after this
Yeah,
with their questions?
definitely. Of course, yeah, you guys can DM me on Instagram or email me, and I'm happy to answer.
Okay, perfect.
Cool. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you. Next up, we've got Keisha coming to the stage. So Keisha is a Space for Humanity's Citizen Astronaut Program graduate. She had the good fortune of winning 2 tickets for a space voyage aboard Virgin Galactic. She shared this extraordinary experience with her daughter, making them the first mother-daughter duo from the Caribbean to venture into space. And this remarkable journey is just one of her many achievements. Keisha is a certified MAP practitioner and coach who harnesses the power of neuroscience and manifestation therapy to achieve remarkable results, heal trauma, and eliminate mental barriers. She also serves as a wellness coach and self-development mentor, empowering women to pursue their dreams and overcome their fears. So I have had the good fortune of knowing Keisha because, like I said, she's a Citizen Astronaut Program graduate, and she's entered into a year-long leadership, community development, and impact plan. So she is doing impact around the world, and she's using social media to highlight this. And so we're going to have Keisha come on up. Let's see here. Keisha, are you able to also... There you are.
Hi.
Perfect. Hi, Keisha. How are you doing today?
Oh, I'm doing well, thanks. I hope my background is okay. Yeah. All right. So hi everyone. Thanks for having me here. Very excited to share my my insights with you. Not very tech savvy. So, yeah, 1 second. Okay. So yeah, so I had the fortune of winning 2 tickets and to go to space, and I did just August the 10th, 2023 with my daughter. Space for Humanity has really offered such an amazing support system for me. Just to get through the whole experience, having that right support was very much helpful. We all have our human qualities, and we all have our fears and the things that hold us back. So knowing that, you know, you have that training that can help you to get through with social media, just, you know, especially if you're a private person, you know, there are different tools that you can use to still save you, like save yourself from sharing too much of your most personal, but, you know, using the tools to help you to share what's important. And that's what I try to do, which was amazing. I'm trying to see how I can share with you my slideshow. 1 second. Share screen. Okay. Yay, I did it. All right, so I have this presentation here. Let's see. Okay. So for me, what really has helped me was basically really knowing what is it that how I want to create an impact. What do I want to share? So first of all, my mission really was to go to space, to satisfy my curiosity and see what was out there and to see our beautiful planet. And coming back from space, I found that I really wanted to do more outreach to share about my experience and to also inspire other people, especially in my community in Antigua and Barbuda. So it was very helpful for me just documenting, having a place, a platform where I can document my experience of going into space. And social media, the platform that I mainly used was Instagram. Instagram was very much, it was something that I was already familiar with. So it really helped me to just work with what I already knew and felt comfortable just using that platform. But one of the things that I really understood was that I needed to engage with people and collaborate. So collaborating with Virgin Galactic and Space for Humanity and, you know, other platforms as well was very great because it helped for me to further my outreach a little bit more in that regards. So in order for me to share my story, what were the things that I had to do? So first of all, be authentic. Um, People know when you don't know. So I just had to just let people understand, hey, I'm new to this and I'm just trying to connect and to share what's going on. So sharing from the beginning how it all started really was amazing. And then having the story build up to show, okay, now I'm going to space and being trained and all of that and coming back and what I'm doing with what I've actually acquired with this connection of going into space. But doing live videos also helped as well. As you're going through and doing what you're doing, you're just documenting a lot of lives. Okay, here I am, being trained here. Here I am over there in that kind of way. Connecting with the community of Antigua and Barbuda and also in the Caribbean was very, very helpful for me as well. Just being regular and posting as much as possible so people can see what's going on, because a lot of times I found that people can get bored and they just like disengage with what you're doing. But when you're constant with it, you know, it really creates a really good rhythm that you can continue. Documenting the journey by blogging. I was blogging everything. And then using those blogs that I can go back now and create content with it. But the biggest part was facing your fears from showing up and, you know, like bringing it out, letting people see what you're doing. But seeking support when you do need it is very much important as well. So that's one of the things that I did. Just traveling, getting a lot of invites, going to London, documenting that. This is a picture of that, just sharing the experience. But LinkedIn, some other social media outreach that was very helpful for me was like LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. A lot of tagging and, you know, this type of stuff was very much good. I feel like the younger generation really do understand the social media much better. Being in my mid-age 40s, it was more difficult for me because I had to really try to learn how to do it. So my daughter did help me a lot, but she, on the other hand, was not really sharing on social media, which is fine. But having the post and knowing what to write and all of that is very much important as well. Collaborating with influencers, I find that that also helps a lot too. But most important is to just have fun with the journey. And that's what I decided to do. Just stop taking it so serious and just have a lot of fun with it. And I found that the moment I started doing that, things just started changing on my social media connections as well. And more people started reaching out to me, and I found that I was being invited to more and more talks, becoming a keynote speaker as well. It was all very helpful for me. And being invited to awards, I started suddenly getting awards, giving awards and documenting that as well. It was very important for me what the mission was. I really wanted to share about space and wellness and how we can, you know, create peace on our planet. And my message really was, in order to create peace on our planet, we have to work on ourselves to become, you know, well inside of our minds, well inside of our bodies. And when we can become better inside of ourselves, then we can really help to create more peace on our planet, better communities, better families, and all of that. So I found that just connecting to what I really believed in really was helpful for me. So knowing what your impact is going to be, how you're going to create your outreach, what matters to you, and just sharing your journey, because it doesn't necessarily just have to be about science and about space, but who you truly are and how you can create a beautiful movement that you can share and inspire other people as well. And in our community, there's, you know, we have a lot of fear background. So just showing that, hey, I am facing my fears, I am standing up and doing what I think is important, stretching myself, going beyond all of this, was really a beautiful journey for me. So if you have any questions, I'll be very happy to answer any of them. Okay, not sure. How do you stop the video?
Okay, thank you so much, Keisha. That's wonderful. Now, you know what? Unfortunately, we're a little tight for time. So is it okay if we have the questions go to your DMs?
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you.
Okay, beautiful. Thank you so much. And it's been really wonderful seeing your journey as well. And I can definitely relate to, you know, for me, social media has been something that I'm really like on a weekly basis trying to learn. But it's been amazing seeing your journey. Now, social media extends far beyond Instagram and YouTube. We also have LinkedIn. So we've got a LinkedIn specialist here with us today. Welcome, Matt Jerdson. Matt closes new leader skill gaps in aerospace and technology company. He's a former Air Force instructor pilot and ex-SpaceX learning leader. Welcome, Matt. Thanks for
Hey,
coming.
everybody. Absolutely. Super excited to be here. Super excited to talk about LinkedIn because it's kind of been my thing. Just a little bit of background on me so you know who I am. Like she said, I was I was an instructor pilot in the Air Force. I got into the Air Force because I wanted to fly the space shuttle. When I saw the opportunity to get out of the Air Force, the only reason I wanted to leave was because I wanted to work for SpaceX. And so I managed to network my way into SpaceX and worked there for a few years, which for anybody in space is just a dream. I got to be there all the way from a little bit before the first landing. I started around the Discovery launch. back in early 2015, and was there through the end of through 2019. So almost got to see. I left just before Bob and Doug went. So got to see tons of growth. And after leaving there, went to another company and then started my own company in learning and development. And basically, all of my company development has been through LinkedIn. So I'm obviously a huge fan of it. I'll go ahead and share my screen just so I can have some visuals up. I know since we are tight for time, it's perfect because I just have a couple simple lessons that I wanted to break down for you all, really thinking about why I think focusing on the ways that LinkedIn is different from other platforms and how to use those differences to your advantage. I think LinkedIn is a great opportunity for people who maybe you're a little less visually inclined, maybe you don't want to be on video a ton, that kind of stuff, because it is still a very text heavy platform, which allows for a lot of creativity. And I know lots of extremely successful accounts that purely post text, and that is it. They never do images, they never do anything else. Certainly don't do videos of themselves or anything. So it is totally possible. So wanted to go through just 3 lessons that I've found through my kind of LinkedIn journey of over the past couple of years. I don't know, when I really started hitting it heavy, I probably had 1,200 followers on LinkedIn. Now I have about 5,500. So it's not like it's crazy. I don't have 100,000 followers or anything like that, but it's been very consistent growth within a community that I care about. And that's the thing for me, is that since I'm focused on driving my business, I care less about giant reach and more about impact and strong connections with the people that I care about. And I think there's corollaries there to the kinds of connection that you're going to want to build with your niches. So lesson 1 about LinkedIn, and this is probably relatively true with any platform, but it is a networking platform. That is still what it is for, versus a lot of other social media platforms that are really pure, just like media feeds. It is a networking platform. So if you want to be successful there, you do need to network. You do want to always be going out, seeing who you can connect with, not just looking for followers, but looking for building actual connections with other people on the platform. Simple way to do this, if you're looking to grow, the way that has worked for me is find someone else in your niche who's a few rungs above you and start interacting with them, with their content regularly. Don't go into their comments, to a post comment and just say like, really cool. Have actual thoughtful things that add to the conversation. And then after you do that a few times, send them a connection request. And that's how you can slowly build up your network, in a way that will also help build your reach as a creator, because now that you're connected with them and they're going to see you engaging with their content, they're going to engage back with your content. If you're doing a lot of commenting within their posts, other people who are following them are seeing your comments and engaging with your comments. I know people who have built tens of thousands, followerships in the tens of thousands, basically purely through like using other people's comments. Their goal is to go in to comment on other posts and be like the top comment on that post, and they'll get hundreds of likes on one of their comments, which then drives people to follow them and comment on their posts. So this kind of networking can be a really virtuous circle to grow and grow and grow, which is, I think, much more important on LinkedIn, because the owners of LinkedIn have stated pretty explicitly their goal is to not have viral content. Like they want people to be in these thoughtful communities. And so you have to be much more intentional about how you build your network. That's first lesson. Lesson 2, post consistently, but not too frequently. I think that kind of uniquely amongst social media platforms, LinkedIn will almost punish you if you're just like spamming the platform, right? Places like X, you can put up, a dozen X posts a day, and it kind of just keeps, it's just more fuel to the fire. Whereas on LinkedIn, what you need to do is you need to kind of monitor the level of engagement that you're getting with your posts, to make sure you're not just pushing out too much content. So especially early on, I would recommend something like 2 to 3 times per week as just like the standard bar to set for getting started if you can. And then this was just a rule that I was given a while back. Once you see your post consistently getting like 1,000 impressions per post, then you can go to like a daily kind of schedule. And then this is true for all social media platforms. Highly, highly recommend create a content plan and like I don't sit down, so now I'm post every single day. I don't sit down every day and be like, okay, what am I going to post today? I sit down on Friday, actually, later today. I'm going to sit down for an hour. I'm just going to write my content for next week and schedule it for next week. So highly, highly recommend that because it's really, really important to be effective. And then the final lesson that again is somewhat unique for LinkedIn is that there is a wide variety of content types that you can post. And and if you want to drive a good channel, then I highly recommend utilizing as many of those content styles as you can. It is still a text-first platform where all you need is text and you can have a successful post. But adding images to the post is virtually always going to kind of increase the engagement. That's at least what I found. It's always going to be better. You don't need it. Like I said, there's still successful ones out there that only do text, but images really, really help. Carousels, those are the ones where it's like a PDF. What you do is you upload a PDF document and you can kind of slide. It looks like a slider where you can, have kind of a longer engagement with folks. From what I've seen and been hearing, those are still some of the best ways to produce like near viral content. Those are the things. Good carousels tend to get the most shares, and shares are really how you drive up a lot of exposure. Interestingly enough, video tends to underperform. Now, caveat to this, there's breaking news like in the last 2 days that LinkedIn is introducing kind of like a TikTok style video feed. That's all I know, that it exists. But in terms of the normal feed, just like having a video in there, normally it tends to underperform. But we'll see if that changes with this new type of content that they're pushing. Polls are also another, one that you can slide into your schedule every, once a week or every other week or something like that. So you want to keep that variety. Again, following all the kind of branding guidelines of keeping it all consistent, staying in your lane, staying in your niche. But despite the fact that this allows you to not need to use your face or video in any way, unlike a lot of other platforms. It really does provide you just a lot of variety in terms of the kinds of content that you can create. And so that's pretty interesting. So again, just wanted to quickly share those 3 lessons with you from kind of what I've seen. And yeah, happy to open it up to any questions, or if we need to keep pushing, we can keep pushing.
Thank you so much, Matt. That was really insightful. I know I learned a lot. We're going to keep it pushing. So if we can, I shared your and so people can drop you a DM, follow you on LinkedIn, talk
Please do.
there. Yeah, thank you so much. All right. So next up, we're going to do one of our 2 Q&A sessions. Later, we will have Katya. But for now, we've got Ben. Ben is our in-house social media person. He's born and raised in the UK. Ben Simpkins graduated from Cambridge College, and he worked in his family's design business. Ben trained as both a graphic designer and copywriter. After a career in writing, film, production, and editing, Ben is now the Director of Creative and Content Strategy at Space for Humanity. Welcome up, Ben. How are you doing today?
Hi, Aisha. Yeah, thanks for the introduction. That's nice. Yeah, like Aisha said, I'm the creative director at Space Humanities. So one of the large parts of creative exercise in an organization like ours is social media. So that's a lot of primarily what I do and spend my life in. And so because I have access to our social media, I've been asking our community questions over the last week. Hey, Union Jacks in the comments, appreciate that. I actually live in the States, and I've lived in the States half my life. So so I'm a bit of both, but keep the accent because it always works. Branding. But yeah, I've got some questions. I've been compiling them over the week, so I'm just going to dive into those. We've got a couple live that were really great that I wanted to check out, but let me just pull up my questions. So first off, one of the great questions I had was, Why is building your personal brand on social media important to being an astronaut? And I think that's a great question, because this world isn't a one size fits all kind of thing, right? Like social media to some people is anti-conducive to their mental state, or so many things. So I don't want to push the, square peg round hole, like, or just I'm a hammer, so everything's a nail. Social media is extremely important, but of course, there are a multitude of other ways to get around that. But I do want to focus on the social media side. So why building your brand on social media is important to becoming an astronaut, I think, is with the CAP, we're using the human experience to encourage human connection and like the proliferation of ideas and aspirations. But not only around spaceflight, but more pressing concerns of humanity as a whole. So social media is one of the major platforms in use to build a personal brand on social media. And it's crucial for astronauts because it tells your story. It tells your journey, right? You get to share that journey. And I think Matt put a really good point in there. Each platform is different, right? Like, so Twitter is like instantaneous, right? So that's like stream of consciousness, get it out there. Sometimes that's problematic that it's a stream of consciousness, but for better or worse, that's what it is. And so that's where we kind of ideal for real-time updates, engaging with followers in a one-to-one conversation and sharing insights that you'll get some insights back from. Whereas Instagram, my personal favorite, and where we spend a lot of time in Space for Humanity, it's a great place for visual storytelling, right? And you don't need to visual storytell because you can go to LinkedIn, and Twitter, which has a much more text-based system. But Instagram, YouTube, especially since the introduction of TikTok, this idea of instantaneous sharing of thought through a video form in a non-produced way is like super right now, right? It's what we're doing. So being able to learn and get comfortable in front of a camera, just grabbing it and sticking it in front of your face and looking like a teenager on vacation is like really helpful, getting comfortable, feeling that feel. So all those things are really important. I wanted to move on to how can you create engaging and informative content that showcases your skills and achievements related to space? I think that's a great question. So again, it's your story. Tell it, right? Like just in any way, shape, or form that you like to express yourself in that way, tell that thing. Tell that story. Really engage with the story. How can you connect and interact with other space enthusiasts and potential citizen astronauts online? So this is a great question because I think it can be really difficult. Social media can feel really isolating. It's supposed to be this giant community, right? But it's faceless. It seems nameless in a lot of ways. The loudest voice talks most. But underneath that surface is this kind of undercurrent of community that's happening all over the place. And that's why you hear such inspiring stories about friends from around the world just meeting and finding love through video games, or salmon, like Sarah from Aisha's example. Like you can find other people. Maybe there's no one that likes salmon in your neighborhood, but maybe there's someone in a different country that likes salmon. You can find that connection with people, and especially in the space industry, as you're building those connections, which are so important at this point, as you start this journey, using those things like actually connecting. So as Matt said, getting on with other people, connecting with their accounts, actually engaging, not just throwing up a thumbs up, but actually asking pertinent and awesome questions, adding to the conversation, right? It's always about adding to the conversation. Social media can be such a thing that detracts from our lives. We want to use it, especially at Space Humanity. We talk about this a lot, that you're giving us you give us your time. And I want to make sure that content is useful, is worthwhile to you, that the price of admission is worth it. And so that comes with information and new updates and things like that. So as we go forward, we're moving into a more transparent stage with the CAP, which starts with this webinar, right? And that we start by communicating more with our community about what's going on and how it works and all those things. And look forward in the future, keep an eye on our social medias, because we're right now, as we bring in our new executive director, we're working on some really robust ways to bring that community together in a more holistic sense. So really, there's going to be ways for you to interact with us and other CAP applicants and even people like Katia and Sarah who have gone to space with us. I think it's going to be a great way for you to think. So keep an eye on that as we go forward. So yeah, I just wanted to answer the question live. So if I can just bring that up. Here we go. I think this one's a really good one. Hello, thank you for this presentation. I am an artist performer. I have been working on bringing visual and performing arts back to schools and to the community. What advice could you give me on how to give my social media presence when my work involves children? And this is a really important one, right? Kids. And if I bring it to space a little, space is really, really, inviting to kids. It's really exciting. It's a rocket ship. But obviously social media, it's like giving a kid candy nonstop, right? So you have to look at those things. One of the ways I think that engaging with kids, a really great way is YouTube has a setting on it so that you can brand it just to children, and then there's all kind of guidelines to make sure that it's content that's kind of the right stuff for kids to be watching. And kids utilize Pinterest and TikTok a lot as their search engines. So, they kind of engage with the internet slightly different than an older generation. And so that they search through Instagram, they search through YouTube, they search through Pinterest. So one of the ways to engage children is obviously be cognizant of the fact that your audience shouldn't be on as long as a usual user. And so you might want to change your content schedule towards that. But yeah, YouTube and TikTok are great places, and Pinterest are great places for that. Aisha, I want to be cognizant of time, so I don't know where we're at.
You're doing great. You've got about 5 more minutes, Ben.
Man, I talk fast. Okay, well, that's good. There's a couple other ones in here. As from that one's for you. Here we go. How do you gauge the authenticity of community engagement efforts through social media? There seems to be a huge trade-off between prioritizing follower count, visual aesthetics, etc., over genuine content and goals. I think this is a really great question because it's, yeah, you're right. With any kind of branding, right? It's a case of there is a level of separation between you and the audience, or you and the subject. It's an artificial barrier. Like right now, I'm talking to you and there's no room. I'm just monologuing. I do this in my own life. I monologue at my family, but they get to roll their eyes at me. I can't see you guys rolling your eyes. So it becomes a one-way conversation, right? And that can be really difficult because that can, even when you don't mean it to, that can breed disingenuous, or like a slightly false, like we all put on a mask, right? We all don't act quite the same when we're on camera. And so I think that there's a level that can just be, there's a stiltedness that comes to it. And that comes with learning like on-camera techniques, right? Like on-camera techniques, getting used to being on the camera, getting used to just talking, getting used to engaging an audience like one-on-one, even when it's more than one. And then the other part is, yeah, there are some disingenuous kind of like feelings on that because you're being pulled in many different directions, right? You want more followers because then you can get more exposure, which then means that your audience has more reason to be. So I think that what's most important, if that's the most important for you, which is the prioritizing genuine authenticity of a community, I think that you'll find a community that it will probably be a slower, more organic growth, but that community will stay longer. It will engage you more, and I think you'll see the fruits of that. So, yeah. And let me bring back. I'll go to maybe one more question. You're welcome. Someone said great answer. I appreciate that. One more question. Let me pull that up. Let's see. Here, this is a good one. How can you balance your personal and professional online presence and maintain your privacy and security? Maybe I'm not the right one to answer for that because Katia might be the perfect one to answer that one for you. But yeah, it is really hard setting a schedule, setting a real online presence, like how Shirley said earlier. There's, you have a very set look to it. Matt talks about making sure that you do your schedule and you have that schedule. These are really important things because online is always online, right? You're always on. The mic is always hot, and that can create burnout extremely fast. Promise you. If it's important that you create boundaries for your content and for your audience, right? We live in a world now where you can, once you realize what Breaking Bad is, you can binge the whole thing on Netflix. That wasn't always the case, right? It used to be you had to wait when Breaking Bad came out. It was originally just one episode and you'd wait till the next week. On social media, you can make it so that it's binge worthy, but you can also eke it out in a way that people know to come to you. And that's the point, is creating consistency. And through that consistency, you can prevent burnout. Okay. I think, do I have one time for one more question, Aisha, or should I just pass it on over? I think everyone's excited to move on to Katia, probably. Not to self-deprecate.
You have time for one more, Ben.
One more question. Okay. All right.
One more.
How can you measure and improve your social media performance? And oh, that's a good one. How can you measure and improve your social media performance and feedback? So you're creating a genuine brand. You're creating boundaries for yourself, making sure that your schedule is something that you can handle, right? And that you can stay consistent with so that the algorithm can work. But then how can you also measure and improve that performance as you want to grow your audience, which is everyone's goal, while still being authentic, right? So tracking engagement metrics, like, is really important. That's like likes, shares, comments. You can do these through listening software, but Instagram itself has its own, or any of the social media really. Meta has a really robust Meta Business Suite. If you have it through a business sense, like, and so you're really able to analyze which content resonates with most of your audience, and then that's really like, you got to think of it like you're a producer on TV, right? Like, we've all seen TV shows that kind of show this aspect where, the network comes in and says, well, we need more dogs in that TV show because that's what the people want. Well, they're doing that through analytics. You have access to those analytics too, those same tools at this moment. So it's a huge democratization of analytics to help you create content. So you can go through your authenticity. You can talk about the things you love. You can talk about salmon. You can talk about spaceflight. But you can see almost in real time how your audience reacts with that, how they engage. Is it more that, do you get them excited so that they engage with you through comments? Is it just something that's just part of their day and they see it, they like it, and they scroll past it? Like, you'll be able to tell each of those things and tailor your forward content based on those things. So what we do is we tend to do, I do a deep dive analytics, usually every 2 weeks. And then that will tell me what I want the next month of Space for Humanity, where I want to tailor it slightly. The video is not working, or my engagement isn't working here. So yeah, that's a really great way to do it.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Ben.
Yeah, of course.
Now, we have way more questions. So, Ben, you can really reach out to Ben, shoot us a DM at Space for Humanity, and we'll get to the rest of your questions. So now we're going to switch things up a little bit, and I'm going to talk about vulnerable populations. So going back to that niche, we talked about salmon, and salmon are so easy to be highlighting your work with because, they're fish. But what about other groups that you're working with, other niches? So let me just share my screen. Right. Okay. So, vulnerable communities. This refers broadly to low social economic status. Let's move this. Highly socially vulnerable, rural and or historically oppressed and or disadvantaged communities. So that's a lot. But if we were to break it up, all right, including but not limited to racial or ethnic minority groups, low-income individuals and families, individuals who are incarcerated and those who've been incarcerated, individuals with disabilities, individuals with mental health conditions, women, children, youth, and adults. I know that was in the questionnaire, or one of the questions, working with youth, seniors, immigrants and refugees, individuals with limited English proficiency, two-spirited, lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, questioning, intersex, asexual, and other non-cisgender and non-heterosexual individuals and communities, and of course, combinations of these populations. So that's just a little dip into the pool of communities that we would consider to be vulnerable. Now, I find I've read a lot of applications, and folks generally are working with populations because there's passion for working with populations, and sometimes they're coming from themselves being a member of these communities. So that could be the case, or it could be that you're from outside of these communities and working within them. Now, how would you highlight to us and showcase that if you were wanting to use social media? It's not easy. So your first question is, can the individual give consent? No, yes, no, but maybe a guardian can. So let's go through these different routes. And I want to stress this is just, a guideline, but every population, every community, every individual that you're working with will be a little bit different. But let's just hypothesize that your community can give consent. So the logistics, discuss how, where, and why the image is being used, and then obtain written consent before taking the image. And provide your contact information, because the individual might say, you know what, yes, I said you can take my picture because you're working with me in XYZ, but now I'd like to rescind that permission. And so you have to really be able to communicate with the individual and allow for them to not have their image used anymore. So you've got to be really reflective when you're working with the vulnerable populations. And I always ask myself, is it empowering the individual? We want to really, yes, the list that we previously talked about, there's vulnerability there. And so, you know what, we can flip the script and have it as empowering. And so really making sure that it is doing so. Ask yourself, how will community members feel when seeing this image? What kind of representation are you providing? And then going back to that LCDI, well, is this image helping to illuminate what you're doing? Or is it just an image because, you've got an image, right? You want to be really purposeful. I think something that every single person spoke to was, taking a step back, maybe doing some planning, doing some scheduling. And so we're really saying like, okay, if you're working with vulnerable populations, you've got to take an extra step back in how you're representing them, how you're getting that consent. Okay, so I loved this example, the Patty Grace Smith Fellowship. If you haven't followed them, shoot them a follow. They're an amazing nonprofit that gives fellowships to folks. And so you can see that this post, well, going down the list, does it empower the individual? Absolutely. This is shouting the person out. They've gotten the fellowship. And so now, this person also, we know they can give consent because they're working with a group that is legally plus 18. So, that's really great. I can also see that this is a headshot. So this person probably, was asked and then said, hey, what photo do you want to use? And they had this headshot and sent it over. And, then how would other community members feel if they saw this image? I think really good. This is empowering. This is exciting. The caption extra, extra, there's excitement here, right? And does it illuminate what they're doing at Patty Grace Smith Fellowship? Absolutely it does. They're all about the fellowships. They're giving a fellowship, class of 2024. So great job to them. Moving on, okay, what about no, but a guardian can? So this is probably you're working with underage individuals. I saw a lot of camps, being done, things like that, education. So, you discuss with the guardian how, where, and why the image is being used, obtain that written consent, showing, this is the difference here, showing the guardian images first before publishing to see if there's any objections. And then also providing contact information if they want it to be removed. And I did say, you know what, even though a guardian can give consent, And I've worked at camps where, you know, at the beginning of camp, the adult parent or guardian would sign off to, like, yes, if your kid is in a camp, you know, I'm okay with using an image of them. But like, let's just actually break it down to, this is the image. Are you okay with that image being used? And, you know, I'd still be really thoughtful and use a less is more approach. So, okay, look at this. Katya's Fund Especial. I thought this was such a great image. This person, probably under 18, probably a guardian, was giving consent there. But like going through the checklist, is this empowering? Absolutely. This is a great image. They're excited. This is all about, you know, Fund Especial, talking all about their next mission. How would community members feel? I think really great. Other youth would be inspired and want to be standing there with Katya, you know, back to back with this exciting mission. And does it illuminate what they're doing? Absolutely it does. And especially going into the caption, telling us more about what's going on. So I thought that was a really great example. Uh-oh, what if no, you cannot get consent? And, you know, there's a lot of individuals in that broader list, you know, that couldn't give their consent, or, you know, it wouldn't be possible maybe because, you know, to ask whatever you're doing, it might be kind of an in the moment thing. And so to get the written consent might not be possible. So that means it's time to get creative, maybe zooming out and looking at the bigger picture. So I really liked this. You know, this might be a camp working with individuals with disabilities. And so, you know, getting consent might not be possible, but, you know, you still want to talk about the camp and maybe in the caption talking about the amazing work you're doing. So how cool would this be to do an aerial shot? Because you're not getting individuals, their faces or their likeness, but we know you're working with individuals. Summertime when the weather is hot. So yeah, take a zoom out, be creative. And maybe possibly using art to help tell the story, especially if you're working with really young children. This is fun.
Who's that bunny bopping along? Hop, hop, hopping and singing his song. When he starts bopping, he just can't stop.
That's so cute. So, you know, a little hand, something like that. You can still talk about what you're doing without using the individuals that you're working with. Got another one here.
Sunshine, warm and golden morning, making all things new.
So taking, you know, that art, telling the story, probably in a caption, talking about the work that you're doing when it comes to that LCDI. And you know what? It might be time for you to get in front of the camera yourself, or the microphone, or the keyboard. Maybe it's a blog that you will be writing your experience leading this group, right? Or maybe you're going to join a podcast to talk about your involvement with this group if they can't be giving consent. Now, I could do a whole webinar just about inclusive tips, so I apologize for how quickly we're going, but just remember we're using person first language, so a person who has a disability, person who is blind. If you don't know someone's pronouns, you know, stick to gender neutral. Ensure videos have closed captioning. I myself, I did a video to talk about this upcoming webinar, and I had forgotten to do closed captioning, and someone did a comment, and I was like, oh shoot, you know, I'm such a novice, but let me try again. And I was able to DM them a separate one, you know, but with these inclusive tips, there's so many great things that you can be doing using alt text or descriptions for your images. And so Jasper, if you could add into the chat, we've got a really great article that can give you even more knowledge, especially around accessibility and how to use that alt text. All right, and again, we're tight for time. So if you've got questions, just go ahead and DM me at Universal Inclusion, or you can write me an email, aisha@spaceforhumanity.org. Great. Okay. Next up, we have CA1 in the house. Katya, hello. Katya is an electrical engineer, public speaker, science show host, and space activist. And like I said, CA1, our Space for Humanity citizen astronaut #1. Hi, Katya.
How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. How are you?
Great. I've been listening to everything and I love everything that has been said so far. So we're doing good.
That's awesome. You know, something that I love in my role is that I get to know people from that early journey of their application, reading their application, seeing them go through the different processes, and then, you know, at the very end, see them go to space and then come back down and do that year-long impact, leadership, community development, and impact plan. So I was able to know you this whole journey. And I will say you were someone that was really proficient in social media beforehand. Can you tell us why you were so interested in using social media to talk about what you were doing?
Yes, I think that social media gets a bad rep sometimes, and it sometimes it deserves it, and I understand the criticisms that surround it. But I think that's why it's also really important to generate and create positive content that people are going to be exposed to, that's going to empower them instead of making them feel insecure or uncomfortable. And that was really the intention for me. So I had just graduated from UCLA with a degree in electrical engineering. I had started first my internship at NASA, and then after that, my full-time career. I was hired 6 months before my graduation. And so I was really excited about my career and the prospects and everything that I was working on. But when I would go back to my community and I would go back to my world detached from this world of engineering and this world of space, people would be so shocked to hear where I worked and that people that have backgrounds like mine do exist in these spaces. And so that coupled with also what I was experiencing, what I was learning, what I was living on the job. And I mean, truthfully, yes, there were other women and there were other Hispanic people working there. There weren't enough. And so it's kind of a two-sided coin, right? I want the people to know that we are here, but I want the people here to know that there's more of us that could be here. So that's when I started posting and just kind of expressing myself in this story through social media to try to achieve both sides of that coin. And it started in a very educational way. I remember that I was posting just about the missions and the work that was being done. And then slowly it transitioned into a more personal perspective because that's really what people were curious about. That's what they wanted to know. And when I really started to open up and be vulnerable about this journey, whether it be through education, graduating from engineering, and then being a new engineer and transitioning from a student engineer into an actual contributing member that is now a leader in this area and in this field, I think that is really what people resonated with the most, and it kind of just blossomed from there.
Oh, amazing. And you've been blossoming ever since. It's been beautiful watching your journey. So I'm going to go to the Q&As in the chat here, and let's pick out a few. I've got one here. Sarah says, what if I already have a brand in social media, but I grew to find it cringe and felt like it doesn't represent me? How can I rebrand myself? And do I need to start from scratch?
Yeah, so I really love that question because I too find the first few things I was posting cringe. I mean, I found some of the content that I made even during the pandemic recently, and that's if many of you will recall, that's kind of at the start and beginnings of the transition into TikTok and into that kind of content. And so a lot of us didn't really know what to do with that new platform, didn't really know what we were doing. I will be honest, I mean, I've made a lot of mistakes and I've had to really readjust and like you said, rebrand myself. So a very clear example is my transition onto Spanish and English content. Initially, depending on the platform, it's different, but initially I remember I was posting everything first all in English, and then slowly I decided to start making some Spanish content as well. And I kind of just had the videos themselves separated by language, but the community and the audience was the same. This was working fine on places like Instagram, on Twitter, on Facebook. But when it came to TikTok, the audience there is just so different, and what they're expecting to see is so different that it just was not really working out anymore. So TikTok is one of my only platforms where I actually deleted everything I had. I had 500,000 followers when I deleted that platform. I reopened the accounts, I restarted from scratch, and I made two, one fully in Spanish, one fully in English. I'm back to my original following. And then for my Spanish account, I actually have almost 2 million followers on there. So sometimes it's worth a shot to just kind of start from scratch if you really think that the direction you want to go in is just so different. But I mean, again, if you really want to start from scratch, you don't necessarily have to delete the entire account and just do a brand new thing. If you think that the audience you already have might resonate with this and might understand, you can also just put down the content and then start fresh with something else, make a new introduction, introduce yourself and this new project that you're going to be taking on.
Exactly. And I think, don't be too hard on yourself. I would guess, like, actually, can you put in the chat, people who are active on social media, did you find your first few posts to be cringe? Because I know I did, for sure. And still sometimes.
I still, I refuse to watch anything I do. I don't watch any of my interviews. I don't watch any of my podcasts. I don't consume any of my own content for that reason.
Okay, I got it. And I see the chat. Yep, I did, definitely, for sure. I love that. Okay, next question here. Do you recommend only posting about your niche, or is it okay to also post about your daily life as well?
I think that there's definitely a balance that you can find. And I remember the question that was asked to Ben about your personal life. So that is something that is up to you, because people, once they start resonating with your project and your leadership and what you really have to offer to the world, they're going to also want to know more about you. Right? Like, for example, if I'm posting constantly and I'm saying I'm going to be going to the Senate today and I'm going to be lobbying for constitutional reform for space activities, and then right after that, I'm going to go get ready and get my hair and makeup done because I'm actually walking in a fashion show for L'Oreal. And then the next day, I have to do a shoot for a magazine, and the article is going to talk about space activities, but we have to get the photos done. And so I think sometimes people are very curious about what your life looks like, how you can essentially deal with the magnitude of what you're doing, both psychologically, emotionally, but also physically. Because when you're having days like that, I had a day, which to this day is one of my most difficult days that I've had in terms of how many things I did. In the morning, I had a meeting with, well, first I had a meeting with the person who helped me secure a meeting with the Mexican president. So we had a strategy breakfast. We then walked over and met with the Mexican president. I was there for about 2 hours. It was only supposed to be a 40-minute conversation, but he was so excited about the projects that we had relating to the space industry. And I was able to convey this so well that he wanted more time. And actually, I was the one that told him I had to go, which is not something you imagine telling your president, like, hey, I love this conversation, but I gotta go now. After that, I went over to the mayor of Mexico City. I thought it was going to be, I wasn't really given much information. I was told she wants to meet you. I go over, there are 400 people sitting down in chairs, an entire stage and platform and live television ready. And I'm ushered on the stage and asked to give a speech about my experience. I'm then presented with the keys of the city to Mexico City. Everything was just kind of like, I have no idea what's going on. I'm just here and trying to deal with this. after that, I had to go meet with an ambassador who is in charge of the relationship between Mexico and other Latin American countries regarding space activities. And then after that, I had to go across town to do a photo shoot because I was going to be on the cover of a leadership magazine. So I did that all in one day. And when you
Wow.
have days like that, yes, I think it's worth exploring. What does that look like from the personal perspective? What is that like? When did you eat? When did you rest? How did you sleep that night? How do you make sure that you're going to have the energy to put up with days like that? So there's definitely ways that you can incorporate that aspect of your personal life into the work that you're doing, because I think it's also really important to be very transparent with people about how we are humans. We are not perfect. Yes, maybe today my day is looking like this, but what's it going to look like tomorrow? Because I can guarantee you tomorrow I am not getting out of that bed. And tomorrow I may not even shower. I may not, just from everything that I had to deal with and I still have to process from what just experienced the day before. So again, it's definitely up to you personally. Just very quickly to wrap up this point, there are things that I do keep private. You might notice that I am very private when it comes to my personal relationships. I'm very private when it comes to my friendships that don't necessarily already have a social media presence. I have entire groups of friends that I will go on entire vacations and trips and breakfasts and lunches and dinners that are not really present on social media, and I will simply not be posting that. A lot of people get surprised and shocked when I will say my husband, and they'll be like, wait a minute, you're married since when? Since before all of this, actually. But it's just a decision that we made together. It's not something that he looked for. It's not something that he wanted. And we try to protect that as much as we can.
Exactly. Going back to that planning and deciding what's going to be public, what's going to be private. And there might be a little bit of middle ground to certain themes or segments of your life, but it's really important to, I think, save some parts just for yourself.
Yes.
The next question is, how do you deal with unprofessionalism in social media? So I'm guessing that could maybe be negative comments or things like that.
Yeah. No, there's a lot of that. So, I mean, I'll be very honest. I think initially, when I started off on social media, it was very painful, especially because when you're starting off, and I hadn't really started working with Space for Humanity yet. I was working on my job at the Jet Propulsion Lab over at NASA, and I'm posting about missions I'm so excited about and the work that I'm doing. And I'm getting comments from strangers that have no idea anything about me or any aspect of my life, calling me a diversity hire and telling me that the only reason I was accepted for this job or that I'm being brought into these spaces, whether it be my education, the scholarships that I've received, engineering school, NASA, and beyond, is because of physical attributes or because of a certain demographic that I am a part of that they needed for their statistics. And I think initially those things could be very painful, not because I believed them and not because I was starting to think that maybe it was true. I knew for a fact that it wasn't. I knew for a fact exactly how I got to this point. But still, when you're seeing that, it's also, you have to consider, well, I'm here now and I'm okay. Like this person on the internet saying these things is not going to take my job away. My boss isn't going to be like, oh, I saw this comment, so you're fired now. That doesn't happen. But I was picturing it from the perspective of those girls and women that haven't made it yet, from those girls that are maybe struggling through engineering school and are reading these comments and are reading these opinions and are already struggling as it is. And that's really what hurt me the most. So I really like to think of my social media spaces, first of all, as a space I need to protect for my community, a space I need to protect for myself, but then also a space that sometimes I need a break from. And each day that I will make a post or I will do something related to social media, I will ask myself if I'm going to be seeing negative messages for whatever reason. Am I able to deal with that today? Or am I not? You know, am I not feeling that great? Am I maybe a little down for whatever reason? I'm a little bit insecure for whatever reason, maybe totally unrelated to the work that is going on, but just for whatever reason. I think life is a cycle. Sometimes you're up, sometimes you're down. And when you're up, you really want to take advantage of that and do as much as you can and interact as much as you can. But when you're down, you need to protect that. You need to protect your space, you need to protect yourself. And you have to think of it like your house, right? It's, yes, it's your house and it's open and you're welcoming in as many people as are able and willing and want to come spend time with you. But at the end of the day, it's your house. And there's nothing wrong with saying, you're out.
Yeah, absolutely. Having boundaries is so important. Now we have time for a few more questions. And I will say I'm looking through and a lot of them are program specific. So I'm going to actually tackle those outside of this because I really want to answer the ones that are related to applications and the Citizen Astronaut program and selection especially. But Katya, Arlene is saying, even before you became a citizen astronaut, you've been such an inspiration to me as another Latina in STEM. I'd also like to reach my Spanish-speaking audience, but I am so insecure about how I speak Spanish because I am not proper. Very New York Dominican Spanglish.
I love that question because, and this is something that my sister and I were just talking about that the other day. So I was born in Mexico. I was born in Guadalajara, and my family moved first to Tijuana, which is a border city, and then shortly after to San Diego. And San Diego is also still it has a very large Hispanic population. And so I was able to communicate with my peers in Spanish and really make sure I didn't lose the language. My mom really made it a point. She wanted us to continue our Spanish education. And so we're going to school and we're learning English, and then we're coming home and my mom is continuing to teach us Spanish. My mom always corrected us, and if we said something that was maybe, you know, Spanglish, or there's a lot of different phrases that have been adapted from the English language onto a Spanish word that is not a real word. Like, for example, if you're from the north in Spanish, you might say troca, that like to truck, troca, but that's not the way that you don't say that actually. Like, that's not the real word. And so if you go any further down, they might look at you kind of funny for saying something like that. And so my mom would always correct us and make sure that we would be able to speak the language. But still, as you grow older, and my mom's not a teacher, you know, my mom's not a teacher. She doesn't really have the experience necessary to teach us beyond the basics and beyond the speaking. And so I really struggled with writing. I really struggled with reading at more advanced levels. And when all of my work started in Mexico and Latin America, I could speak pretty well. Like, I was completely fluent, and I am. But I remember at the beginning, people would ask me, and I'd be working in Mexico, and they would ask me, where are you from? And I would say Guadalajara, and they'd be like, no, that's not what I'm hearing. You kind of sound like Selena. And I'll be like, oh no, my mom is not gonna like this. So I practiced. And you know what? The worst part about this is you have to put yourself into those uncomfortable situations. That's the way to get better. That's the way to improve. When you're under pressure, I took those Spanish interviews. If I was given the option of doing something in English or Spanish, I would do it in Spanish. I would ask questions. I would say, if I want to say this, is this correct? Is that the right way to say that? I would try my best to get rid of all of these different mental blocks that I was creating. And I will say, you will get better. And that's what my sister and I were talking about the other day. And she said to me, I saw one of your interviews recently, and the way you were speaking in Spanish, it just sounded just so good. Like, that's not how you started. And I said, I know, I was put into that situation. I accepted it. I took it. And I said, I'm going to get better. So you just have to get started. But I know there's a lot of people as well on social media whose entire thing is the Spanglish content. And when you let your audience know that you're trying to learn something and that it's okay if they correct you and it's okay if they teach you something, I think that sometimes it might be scary to do that, but it helps so much.
Yeah, being vulnerable. There are going to be so many people in your shoes who are trying to improve a different language. And like we talked about, if people are negative, it's okay to, invite them out and, keep going on that journey. All right. Now, going back to LCDI, Leadership, Community Development, and Impact. We're talking about, you can use social media, you can use the LinkedIn, the Instagram, different other platforms to be showing what you're doing or not, right? It's totally up to you. And I will say that in selection, it's easy for you to, check out what I've been doing at blah, 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 blah. Or you can write to us and tell us. You do not have to be using social media. Now, we look at these, we have metrics and things like that. But Katya, do you look at and measure the impact that you've been having in the space industry? And share a little bit about that. That's a question from Fernando.
Yes. So that is very important because when we're able to analyze and measure metrics, we're able to get the support that we're looking for. So if we're saying we're trying to change a law, well, we can't do it all alone. I'm not a congressperson. I'm not a senator. I'm going to need the support of the people that are in power. And if I don't have the voice needed or necessary enough, and if I don't have the power to bring people together to essentially come together and message these people, their congress people, their senators, their local mayors, that this is something that they care about and are interested in, that I'm going to be very honest, it's just not going to happen. Because at the end of the day, we're living in an imperfect society. And this society has certain things that they prioritize. And specifically talking about the world of politics, they have certain things that they are going to prioritize. And truthfully, for many that deal with this world of politics and social change through legislation, that what is really going to attract the support of the people that need to vote yes is going to be a positive public image. And how can you provide a positive public image if you don't have access to drive the media positively in order to achieve that answer? So I truly believe that the biggest reason why we've been able to have so much success when it comes to getting some of these laws approved through the Congress. Right now, we're waiting for a vote in the Senate, and being able to have open doors with any governor and any mayor and any politician in order to try to get them to support these different initiatives is because they know that I hold a lot of power when it comes to gathering people, but I also hold a lot of power when it comes to the media, and I tell the truth. So when you create a reputation for yourself like that, and people know that you are going to tell the truth about certain interactions and the way that things went, or why you heard a yes or why you heard a no, then you also have a lot more ability to really go out there and do the things you're trying to do. I don't want anyone here to think that Space for Humanity is looking for social media influencers that are essentially looking to become more famous and looking to be in the public eye just because. It's a tool and it has a purpose, and that purpose is extremely valuable. So if we're going to analyze the current thought leaders and the current public figures that are working the hardest to try to enact social change, but are doing so in a very successful way, I want all of you to pay attention to their presence on the internet. And you're going to see that that presence is going to be very, very large. So if you're looking for support in any way, it is the easiest thing for you to leverage. So for example, in my case, I have my organization, which is Fundación Espacial, which Aisha mentioned a little bit ago. How am I going to get the support of corporations to help fund my projects? How am I going to get the support of donations from the public, but also private donations from high net worth individuals, and then also grants from some of the biggest foundations in the world, if they're Googling this organization and they can't find a thing about it, and there's maybe one obscure article about it? So truthfully, and I know it sounds harder right now to picture putting yourself out there and bringing yourself to that point. I thought so too. I had those same opinions. But when you have a voice, when you use it wisely, when you have a platform, which is what Space for Humanity provides, and when you strategize properly in order to understand that, first of all, but use it to make sure that you can help others, is how you are going to be able to bring all of these different puzzle pieces together to now create this incredible, amazing project and carry it out successfully. Because at the end of the day, without the eyes, without the public approval, and without the money, it just can't really be done.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for taking us down that journey. It is such a powerful tool, but one that you have to be really purposeful with. All of the people that spoke today, they're offering their DMs to be open. So please reach out if you have questions after this webinar. Now we're over time, but Katya, the questions and the answers were just so rich. We had to push it a little bit. Thank you so much for taking the time. And I really appreciate, afterwards having those DMs open as well. So thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
All right, so that's it, folks. We've come to a close. Thank you, everyone who has stayed with us, and we hope to continue having more webinars to add to the transparency of CAP. So have a good afternoon, evening, or morning, wherever you are.